I've come on here again to talk about what's happening in Palestine and Gaza, and I have 2 more full pages of facts and things that need to be talked about. So what I wanted to do is give definitions of big and important words that get misconstrued into simple terms or just the wrong definitions of what it means. So here are some words that you may have heard but do not know the full definition of them. So colonization, racism, prejudice, classism, terrorism, ignorance, and how to identify a bad leader and what it means to be a bad leader. Colonization is the action or process of settling among and establishing control over the indigenous people of an area. The action of appropriating a place or domain for one's own use. You're telling me that's not what's going on? Racism. Prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism by an individual, community, or institution against a person or people on the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group. The belief that different races possess distinct characteristics, abilities, or qualities, especially so as to distinguish them as inferior or superior to one another. What does prejudice mean? Prejudice is a preconceived opinion that is not based on the reason or actual experience. An example of this would be classism. What is classism, you may ask? Classism, an example, would mean if you find yourself disliking people of a lower economic status or social class and thinking you're part of the elite in group of people and everyone poorer than you is a second-class citizen. Terrorism, the definition of that is the unlawful, let me say that again, the unlawful use of violence and intimidation, especially against civilians in the pursuit of political aims. That's what's going on, okay? Ignorance means the lack of knowledge and or information. If you support Israel or think that the Palestinian people or Gazan people are in the wrong, that's ignorant. Yes, any life lost is bad, but you don't want to talk about the 80 years of lives lost and 45 families, generations being wiped out in Gaza. That doesn't mean 45 people, 45 kids, 45 moms, 45 dads. That's families, generations. Now, if I were to do a family tree and that whole family was wiped out, that's more people than you could think, okay? What makes someone a bad leader is poor communication, passive-aggressive communication, and failure to own up to their mistakes. These bad leaders lack empathy for innocent lives. U.S. taxpayer dollars have supported Israel and its military for over 75 years. That's 7 decades. Decades is every 10 years. 70 years, more than 70 years. Any life lost is too many lives lost. And if you want to talk about the Israelis' lives lost, let's talk about the Gazan people. the Palestinian people. And it's not about numbers, okay? Everybody needs to understand that. It's not about numbers. It's about what's been happening for decades on end, non-stop, repeatedly happening. If you were in the Gazan or Palestinian people's place, you would want help and support and to be heard and to be talked about, because I promise you, when all this is done and said and over with, no one's gonna want to talk about what actually happened. They're gonna want to change the narrative. It's happened in history all the time, and nobody wants to talk about it. Israel has never once cared about the lost lives of the Palestinians or the Gazans. And Israel is silencing them, and they no longer have a voice. And you need to listen to the facts, listen to what's real, listen to the Gazan people's suffering within their voice. If you want, listen, look, do your research, educate yourself. Palestine, Gaza, and the West Bank are occupied. Occupied means a territory is occupied when it is actually placed under the authority of the hostile army. And what happens in an occupied country, you may ask? During the occupation, the state's territory, Palestine, is under control of the enemy, Israel. Palestine is not the enemy. Palestine has been occupied by Israel for generations of families. And oppression means the prolonged, cruel, or unjust treatment or control. That's what oppression means. Palestine has been oppressed for more than 75 years. They were bombing people with white phosphorus. Show a picture. And what is white phosphorus, you may ask? It can cause serious burns and start fires. It is considered a weapon, and it is highly flammable. It is a highly flammable chemical substance which is dispersed in artillery shells, bombs, rockets, and ignites when exposed to oxygen. They're being bombed with white phosphorus, and nobody sees that as a war crime. A war crime examples are murder, ill treatment, slave labor, deportation, and Israel is committing war crimes against the Gazans and Palestinians who are innocent. War crimes should never be committed, no matter the circumstances, and that's exactly what they're doing, and a lot of people don't see anything wrong with that, or they just turn a blind eye. Propaganda is happening, and what's propaganda, you may ask? It's information, especially of a biased or misleading nature, used to promote or publicize a particular political cause or point of view. The spreading of ideas, information, or rumor for the purpose of, in this case, injuring an institution, cause, or person. The Palestinians, the Gazans. The people of Gaza and Palestine were given flyers stating that this is a warning to leave within 24 hours or else their safety could not and would not be guaranteed. Here's the issue with that. There are over 1 million people living in the northern strip of Gaza. It would be impossible to do this within 24 hours, moving them to the other part of the strip. Do you know how long the strip is? Let me show you. And this would cause a humanitarian crisis. And Israel designated 2 routes that were supposedly safe to travel, which led them to being bombed anyways. And what's a humanitarian crisis, you may ask? It is an event or series of events that are threatening in terms of health. I just wanted you guys to know the true and real factual definitions of a couple of these words that people are using and don't know the real definition of, or people are misinterpreting, misconstruing, and just totally flipping. I don't understand it. I wanted to make another video to say that you need to quit spreading information. You need to get educated. You need to be the voice of the Gazan people who cannot speak for themselves because they have been silenced by Israel. I just wanted to say, free Palestine. That's all I have to say is free Palestine, and I stand with them. I'm in full support of them. This is not a war. It is a genocide against the Palestinian people. Take a look back at my other videos where I am also explaining definitions and things that are happening to the Palestinian people. This is wrong and will continue to be wrong. Free Palestine.